to Cape Town and hear what's being said.
Good one for all of you. Today the Federal Executive met, as many of you have reported. We met to deal substantively with the City of Cape Town, its governance, the caucus of the City of Cape Town, and ultimately the leadership of that caucus has been given to Patricia Dille. We, as a party, understand very deliberately that our critical focus is always to ensure that we put the interests of the people of South Africa first, and ultimately the interests of the people of Cape Town. We always have a commitment as a party to clean government, accountable and transparent government wherever we govern. This has been and always will be the hallmark of what makes the DA the DA. It is a value in the organization that all South Africans, regardless of race, gender, creed, are equal before the law, as consistent with our constitution and that of the constitution of the DA. It's within that context that the DA deliberated this manner around saying what is the situation in the City of Cape Town as it speaks to those 2 points, that there's the right to legal process, but equally so we have to consider and put first the citizens of Cape Town. The true test of any political party is what it does when confronted with serious allegations of political dysfunction, maladministration, and governance failures. And the DA, unlike many of our political competitors, stands largely alone in acting with resolve in confronting such issues, even when those decisions, in fact, come at a very serious political cost. We understand that no political party is perfect in execution of its function, but for us, our principle and values and the overarching imperatives to act in the best interest of the citizen is what guides us all the time. And such, it is guided by those values that the DA has sought to uphold due process and the rights of Mayor Dille and a number of councillors throughout this evolving matter. We have, as a result, sought to limit our public communication in this regard in respect of the rights of all involved and the issues concerned, so that we can duly unpack what is happening. And ultimately, we believe the purpose behind today is to set at ease what has been the process, where are we now, and what are the challenges that we faced. So, fellow South Africans, I want to say it has been deeply disappointing in some ways that Mayor Dille has not displayed a similar regard for the best interests of the party and did similar levels of respect to due process, as a number of statements have been made that have been misleading and distortionary public statements throughout the process, both with regards to the DA's procedure, as well as the variety of council initiatives that have been sought to probe her conduct, and amongst others. And in so doing, she's compounded what has already been a particularly difficult situation. I want to be clear and state a couple of things. With regards to all the public statements that have been issued, we reject the very notion that says that one individual is responsible for the spatial integration in the City of Cape Town. This was a DA's manifesto promise. It is derived from policy that says that we want to build a city that is integrated, where citizens from all different races can live together. So it is not that any action you take against any individual is a stance against this issue. In fact, it is that we want to execute that in a manner that is consistent with our values, but also achieves our manifesto as stated. Also note the fact that a number of months ago, when these challenges were put before us, we as a federal executive decided to establish a subcommittee that was led by the Chief Whip of the National Assembly, John Steenhuisen, along with the Gauteng Provincial Leader, John Moody, the Free State Provincial Leader, Patricia Kopane, and the ADEC Chair, Karen Smith. These are all leaders and South Africans who are diverse in both race and gender, but also demonstrate the requisite skill and experience to, in fact, execute the investigation into the City of Cape Town and to give a report back to the federal executive. The aim of that process was to inquire into the growing divisions that are taking place in the city and to answer the question, what is the role of the mayor in that regard, as well as a growing list of substantive complaints about the nature and style of the mayor's internal leadership. This was a process of exercising political judgment in response to political problems on issues rather than, in fact, a judicial process or whatever the case may be. Or rather than seeking to approach the matter as though it was just a narrow legal question. The subcommittee held many days of hearings and heard the testimony from a large number of councillors. The mayor was invited to come before the subcommittee. She declined the invitation and instead, as it was her right, chose to communicate to the subcommittee through a legal representative. She was then given an extensive opportunity to be able to do so in order to ensure that her procedural right was respected. The report that was then tabled before the party raised a number of issues, and these must be read together with the mayor's representation, were considered at length by the Federal Executive at a meeting on the 10th of December last year. Amongst the number of issues arising was that the Federal Executive deliberated on the following aspects. 1. There was clear evidence of deep divisions of the caucus in the city of Cape Town. And these divisions were shown to have been as a result of the mayor's particular style, which was overwhelmingly viewed as unnecessarily autocratic, divisive, and misaligned to the democratic principles of openness and tolerance. It became clear that this had been contributing to a paralyzing culture of fear amongst elected public representatives, as well as a number of officials in the city of Cape Town, the consequences of which was material and impact on a rational, accountable, transparent decision-making of the city. That, in fact, the organizational restructuring led by the mayor appears to have been used in certain instances to remove experienced officials in the city, with a view of replacing them with officials whose loyalty to the mayor was prized over all else. That under the mayor's leadership, key decisions-making structures had been stripped of all their powers and functions, seemingly with a view to centralize overwhelming power in the mayor, undercutting the authority and democratically enshrined role of the mayoral committee, portfolio committees, and sub-councils, as well as the DA's commitment to bringing government as close to the people as possible. It would seem that the mayor has interfered with and manipulated appointments at senior management level within the city and some of its entities. A growing sense of a loss of confidence by the caucus in the leadership of the mayor, which affected governance in the city negatively and undermined effective service delivery. In particular, there has been a particular challenge about the mayor's often irrational, autocratic, and divisive leadership style was seen to be especially problematic, and it was claimed saw her from the overstep in the boundaries of her authority and personally direct operational decisions such as specifications, awarding, and timing of tenders, which all of this requires, in fact, an extensive level of testing in an ad hoc, highly inappropriate fashion. This, in turn, has created a real risk of an impending loss of senior and skilled technical staff from the organization, and as a result of often intolerable working conditions for the professionally qualified and legally mandated officials. The claims made in the protected disclosure by Craig Kesson, the Executive Director and the Directorate of the Mayor, as it relates to allegations of maladministration and serious governance irregularities and the alleged mayor's role therein. It must be equally noted that the mayor equally so has laid charges against a number of people in the caucus, and those will equally serve as part of the consideration going forward. Therefore, after careful consideration of these primary points of concern, the Federal Executive at the time asked the mayor to provide reasons as to why she should not resign. The need to act with dispatch was heightened by the prolonged drought, and I desire to ensure that there is unity of purpose within both the political and administrative leadership of the city to effectively govern the city of Cape Town and to respond to the issue. The mayor was again given an extension so as to be able to give sufficient time to a representation to the Federal Executive as to why she should not resign. Their submissions, as well as the mayor's oral representation at the Federal Executive today, have been further and carefully considered, debated, and discussed. In its deliberation, the Federal Executive could not ignore the fact that the first time in the City of Cape Town's history, a council-mandated independent investigation took the view that the sitting mayor demonstrated allegedly behavior and actions which, on the basis of extensive evidence before them, including the mayor's own representations, prima facie constituted gross misconduct, gross dereliction of duty, and the conduct amounted to deceiving of counsel. Thus, these concerns relate to a range of related serious governance failures, including the My City bus service, the foreshore development projects, and apparent role in actively covering up these failures. This improper conduct includes, but is not limited to, actively obstructing remedial and disciplinary action taken for the losses from the My City system, which at this stage are conservatively estimated at 36 million rand, but could be far greater due to inherent problems within the city systems and data preventing precise reconciliation, while the foreshore freeway project is potentially worth billions of rands. In fact, it is further particularly disturbing that the mayor sought to personally target the officials originally who brought these allegations to the fore and tried to prevent an independent investigation from occurring. Therefore, she has personally authorized multiple recourse against Kesson at the special council meeting on the 21st that aim to prevent investigations into the city manager, the TDA commissioner, Melissa Whitehead. These recommendations, those have her signature and her approval of the council agenda. Therefore, the mayor's desire was overturned because the DA caucus called for an independent investigation into the matter. We are of the complete view that while all of these processes must run to their complete course, the mayor, as she herself has avowed, must take the ultimate political responsibility when these issues are come for profound serious allegations which happened under her watch, and in many instances with her active participation. And in this regard, it is noteworthy that the city manager has independently claimed, as reported in the media, that the mayor prevented the proper conduct of council business. This will become a subject of the council's disciplinary action that will follow subsequent to this. I believe whilst there's more work to be done for investigators as it relates to pursuing additional information and leads, that the disciplinary process into the official concern must be allowed to run its full course. It remains deeply problematic that only certain sections of the report were in fact made public, whilst in truth that the entire caucus of the DA voted in support of the recommendations that were put in that report. And so as a consequence of these governance failures, the Auditor General will soon be in fact issuing his statement on the state of finances in the city of Cape Town, and we find a challenge in the delay in the finalization of the city's financial audit. I want to urge that as a party and as a people, we would never in any way prosecute a false and a disingenuous narrative which has been prevailed in some of the statements made by the mayor that around the motives of the federal executive in pursuing the course of action. We hold ourselves to high regard, we hold any public rep to high regard, and therefore our motives are driven by the interests of the people of Cape Town and our own values as a party. And therefore, the narrative that has been set out there is deeply regrettable, and it's misled the public and masked the very serious concerns as they relate to the leadership and the effective governance of the city. Therefore, it's well within that the DA is determined that we do everything possible to bring unity of purpose and cohesion into the city of Cape Town, and to build on the successes that have already been achieved, and most importantly, in the current context, do everything we can to manage the current water shortages in collaboration with provincial and national government, who share the responsibility of ensuring that everything humanly possible is done to ensure that the city of Cape Town does not run out of water. This must be, in fact, the most pressing priority of the administration of the city of Cape Town and any of its leadership. That's the reason why we want to expedite processes. Therefore, subsequent to today's meeting, the Federal Executive has resolved that if, like any leader, like in any other organization, faced with all the challenges that are before you, you have to take serious action. You have to take the fact that you've considered all the preliminary evidence, you've considered the prima facie evidence that has been tabled before the city, and as a party, we hold our constitution high. Therefore, we have made a decision to formally charge and invest and ask that the party's Federal Legal Commission investigate the mayor. That those charges preferred against her say that in fact either, as our constitution outlines in 2.5.4.2, that she's deliberately acted in a manner which impacts negatively on the image and performance of the party, that as it says in 2.5.4.4, fails to carry out his or her duties and responsibility according to the standards by the Federal Council or the party or the relevant and provincial or regional council, or standards required by any or statutory rules of conduct required by the public office he or she holds. 2.5.4.5 brings the good name of the party into disrepute and harms the interests of the party. 2.5.4.6 acts in a manner that is unreasonable and detrimental to internal cooperation in the party. And then 2.5.4.7 unreasonably fails to comply with or reject decisions of the official formations of the party. And these charges are preferred in the sense that if you lay out the charges, with relates to the first one, it comes out of the question around the text message that was sent around, which is the undue interference in the administration. That when you look at improper conduct and unlawful, it was the appointment of, in fact, Limia Esop into the Stadium Management Board, and this matter must be then investigated. That in fact she's acted in an improper manner and failed to exercise her duties as displaying sound judgment by failing or refusing to ensure that the performance of the incumbent Commissioner of the Transport Development Authority of the City of Cape Town, Melissa Whitehead, and more specifically allegations of poor performance to be properly investigated or taken into account before the appointment processes that leads. When it comes to the question of having failed to perform duties and responsibility according to the the Municipal Finance Management Act and the Municipal Systems Act, that she's failed to refuse to report and properly account to Council in the City of Cape Town regarding irregularities and financial losses reported to her in respect of the contract in the city. The question raised about whether she's failed to perform her duties and responsibilities according to the standard of the Federal Council and the party, or the Municipal Finance Management Act and the Municipal System Act, in that she failed or refused to report and properly account to the Council of the City of Cape Town regarding irregularities with the bid evaluation process. That she's failed to perform her duties and responsibilities according to the standards set out by the Federal Council of the party in the Municipal Finance Management Act and the Municipal Systems Act, in that she failed or refused to take all responsible remedial and corrective steps to ensure that Cape Town performed its constitutional and statutory functions by refusing and failing to act in a reasonable or in a proper manner in respect of financial losses incurred through the contract in respect of the My City project, as well as the Volvo chassis matter. That she's acted in an improper and abusive manner in providing leadership to the caucus of the party, that through her words or action intimidating or belittling caucus members who did not agree with her. Refused to accept the official decisions of the party, and I think all of these will be then matters that will be prosecuted by a Federal Legal Commission, giving the mayor of the City of Cape Town the right, in fact, to be able to respond to the allegations. We would take it that they are serious enough that it is important for her to charge her in contravention of our constitution, to put, in fact, direct leadership into the caucus, and that all the matters of the Federal Legal Commission, that the charges that have been preferred against other members of that caucus be expedited. And therefore we've determined that the FLC conclude their investigation expeditiously so that the matter can be brought to a resolution as soon as reasonably possible, whilst at all time respecting procedural fairness and the dictates of national justice. We are, however, acutely mindful as stated throughout, they need to ensure that stable and effective governance of the city of Cape Town, and that there's little distraction as possible from the government serving on all these people while all of these processes are taking place. That will therefore recommend to the caucus that they formally bring a resolution to council that in fact the mayor from any role on managing and directing the city's response to this prolonged drought during the period of this investigation. Instead, that in fact the deputy mayor and the members of the mayoral committee that are responsible for water, informal settlements and waste services, Councillor Zainthia Limbeck, will be able to assume overall political leadership and control of the city's response plan. Because we've got to put a plan in place to ensure that these matters are expedited carefully and that we can deliver on the mandate for cities. This will be asked in particular to engage with the Western Cape Provincial Government and the National Government to ensure that they too play their mandated role in contributing to solutions to the crisis, both operationally and financially. They will be requested to present with far greater clarity the city's proactive measures to manage the effects of the drought, the need to reduce the demand further, and the prerequisite source additional funding for revenue losses and to fund the augmentation through the use of tariffs and related charges. In addition, the caucus will be requested to ensure that the council resolves that the operational response plan that will be led and directed by the Executive Director of Informal Settlements, Water and Waste Management, along with the relevant officials with the delegated authority to manage and to determine water restriction levels and water management related to this issue. Further, that the caucus of the city of Cape Town will be asked to review the delegations of the city, to restore the proper decision-making authority and functioning of the mayoral committee, council committees and sub-councils. Thus, the organizational restructuring is reviewed and looked at so that the changes so required to ensure governance that makes progress possible for all residents. We simply, fellow South Africans, don't have time to waste. And it's thus that we've put these measures in place to ensure that governments in the interim will be stabilized in the city of Cape Town, and that, in fact, we drive the residents to avoid a situation where we run out of water. It's these actions that I believe will ensure that we can interrogate the matter properly, to be able to clarify to the residents of Cape Town what has gone on, and ultimately ensure that our institutional capacity as driven by the Federal Legal Commission can respond to this. I think it will be important that the caucus of the City of Cape Town be guided by the decisions of the structure so that not all structures can make these decisions. Federal Executive applied its mind, and therefore ultimately we believe in the interest of natural justice and constitutionality that in fact the Federal Legal Commission prefer those charges and run a thorough investigation into the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Missy. We'll be happy to take your questions. We'll take 4 questions at a time. Please just give us your name and which media house you're from.
Far away.
Yeah,